Welcome to Your Onion Podcast. Today's show is sponsored by Cards in Qatar. They sell greeting cards for all occasions, from birthday cards, anniversary cards, thank you cards, congratulation cards, and plenty more. All occasions covered. Find them on both Instagram and Facebook under the name Cards in Qatar. So today's show is with Mr. Jeff Mendelson. He's the founder of Effectivo Social, which is a full-service digital marketing agency. I have a great conversation with him on everything that is digital and how you can be your own boss working from anywhere in the world with any digital platform. So enjoy the show. Awesome. So Jeff, we're live. So Jeff, I wanna know your backstory. I want to ask you, if I met you in a lift, what would your elevator pitch be?
My elevator pitch from the business side is that I am a digital marketer. I am a digital marketer. I'm a podcaster, and I'm an all-around great guy looking for opportunities to pay it forward and to help people out everywhere. It's basically what I do.
Very nice. And on the personal side?
On the personal side, as you can tell from the accent, I'm from the United States. I live in Miami. And I have two beautiful daughters, and we travel a lot, and we have a lot of fun together. And it's I try to live the best life I can, as much as I can. Just getting out there and getting to know new places, new cultures, new foods. It's all about learning new things.
Nice. So, all right, let's go back in time. How did you start this journey, and is this something that you've always wanted to do?
Not really. What happened was I was working in corporate, and I was always one of those people that was always just looking for a job, right? And I usually ended up at these jobs where I wasn't making enough to be truly happy, where I was just making enough because that was the market rate of what they were paying at the time. I knew that I could make more, but I didn't really know how to do it. And in these corporate jobs, what would happen is they would never give me enough work to keep me busy from the 9 to 6 that I needed to be in the office, right? Yeah. And I would finish up my work by about 11:30, and it's like, well, you can't go home. I don't smoke, so I can't go outside, right? And it's like, well, now what are you going to do, right? So I started teaching myself just different programming techniques. I taught myself PHP. I taught myself, some Visual Basic programming, and mostly web development. I started teaching myself about content management systems and the different ones that were out there: Drupal, Joomla, WordPress, eventually. And I became a webmaster, and I did this all on company time, right? So what was happening was, if you would walk past my desk, you would just see me fingers on keyboard, just tooling away all day long. Sometimes I would even stay late finishing up projects and things like that. They thought I was just the most productive employee, and I would get these awards for it. They're like, wow, that Jeff, he's a solid guy. But the truth of the matter was, I was finishing my work by 11.
Yeah.
Right? So I would just start to work on other stuff. And around that same time, I found myself like perpetually in job search mode, right? I never really was in a job where I was truly happy. So as soon as I would land a new job, I would I would still keep on looking for a job. And I was like, there was one point that I was like 3-4 years consistently sending out resumes every week, just trying to find what I thought I was worth.
I want to stop you because you started with, I was always looking for a job. Or was that instilled in you from your parents? That you had to go out. What is it like to be an entrepreneur? Has it changed from the old days to where it is now? That parents instill that you have to get a job, and it has to be a certain kind of job. Especially, I'm just trying to relate to this region, is that there's a lot of pressure from parents that, they specify what profession you have to go in, and that you have to go and get a job. And entrepreneurism isn't.
So interestingly enough, both my parents are in fact entrepreneurs, even if it was forced upon them, right? So my mom had a beauty and tanning salon that, she probably wasn't thinking about opening up, but somehow she fell into that. My dad was an auto mechanic, and he ended up having his own place.
Yeah.
So, but I was just like, well, I didn't have any like leadership. There was nothing really instilled in my head. I was just down the path of, you go to school, you get a job, and you keep on going.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize though was that you condemn yourself almost to this, to this mediocrity, right? Of the job market will only pay X amount per year for a customer service rep or
Yeah.
for a programmer, for whatever. And the only way to really break out of it is to really venture out on your own. Venturing out on your own, 15 years ago, in my opinion, was a lot scarier than it is today.
Yeah.
Now, everybody in the palm of their hands has the power to venture out on their own and make a mark. I mean, 15-year-old kids can TikTok and make millions of dollars, right? Anybody can be that celebrity. It comes down to, there's a fair bit of talent involved, right? But there's also the idea that you have to deliver some kind of value. And the fact of the matter is that our phones now are just as powerful as our computers.
Oh, absolutely.
What you really need is the time and the angle in order to go and deliver on that value.
Yeah. Now you mentioned where you were learning doing web design, web programming. Where did you go? What were the resources for you at that time?
It was really just like Yahoo and Google. Google was just coming up at the time.
Yeah.
And what happened was as soon as I realized that there were like 20 CMSs out there, open source content management systems, I'm like, geez, I'm not going to learn these all. I'm not going to learn all of them. So I decided to focus on one. I did my own study, and like the one that best fit into my personality at the time was Joomla. So Joomla was a content management system, and at the time it was doing better than WordPress. WordPress was still almost exclusively for blogs, and it was growing a following, steadily off to the side. So I established myself as a Joomla expert, right? And like some of the things I did were I would put up ads on Google, basically anyone who like repair Joomla site. Right. So, a lot of times, a Joomla site would break for the dumbest of reasons. So I made some really cheap plays into offering my services to repair those types of sites. And I ended up getting a pretty decent response. And I realized like, wow, there's really, there's something to be had here. I even have a client to this day from that effort that I did, like 12, 13 years ago.
Wow.
So what happened was, I just really wanted to, expand on that, right? And I knew that there was something more for me. And at the time, there was this, there was this big push here in the United States and also other places, to buy and sell property. Property was really cheap. The government was offering these really, really cheap interest rates on mortgages. So what did everyone do in the state of Florida? Become a real estate agent. Right? It was at one point that 1 out of every 8 citizens in the state of Florida was a licensed real estate agent. So I went and got that. I got my mortgage broker's license. And then I spent like the next 4 or 5 months developing a website for this business that I thought I was going to create.
And are you still working at the time?
Yeah, this was all while I had a full time.
Yeah.
While I was, while I was still the corporate guy.
Yeah.
And what happened was I just realized that I didn't know beans about selling real estate or about selling mortgages, but I made a really nice website. And that's where I sort of made that shift of, okay, maybe I should go into the technical side and just leave this whole real estate thing behind. And what happened there was, it really was a shift, because once I did that, then I could just offer my services fixing and creating websites.
Yeah.
The nice thing about websites, and this is still true today, is that it's a good check, right? You can charge $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 for a website, so you get a good check, but then you sort of walk away from it, right? So if you're not part of what happens afterwards, the marketing part, integrating the different, landing pages, calls to action, the other ancillary codes that you need to put in to do all the tracking, in my opinion, I was leaving a lot of money on the table. So that's when I started expanding into website hosting, for example. So I still host.
So are you still working? And when that light bulb moment happened, did you, where is that? Okay, that light bulb moment happened. Are you still working, or did you see there is a added revenue stream coming from
Both.
actually? Yeah.
Both. I incorporated my business a good 5 years before I was fired for the last time, 11 years ago.
All right. Wow. Okay.
And
So,
when I got fired,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, so when I got fired for the last time, I was like, at first I was really nervous. How am I going to buy my Starbucks coffee? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to make my car payment? But one thing led to another, and it's been a blessing all the way around, to this day.
And did you have to learn all that side of thing about marketing and all that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you do learn parts of it in corporate, right? You learn about, the big concepts, but I think, like what works for me or what works for smaller business may not necessarily work for larger businesses. And plus it becomes, segmented. If I'm what's working when I do marketing for a doctor's office may not necessarily be the same thing that I would do for an e-commerce site, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So there are those different types of modalities that you need to think about.
So just give me an idea of your sales funnel. How do you attract people? How do you market yourself? Is it
How do I market?
Yeah. Is it through your website or is it on your social media?
It's through all of them, actually. I think nowadays you can't just do one thing. You can't be a one-trick pony. You can't just make a website and they will come. You can't just start posting on Instagram and they will come. Mm-hmm. Some people do have limited success doing that, and props to them for doing it. But in general, that's not a good nor sustainable course of action in order to market your business. So, like, what am I doing today? Yeah, there's the website, there's word of mouth, there's the podcast that I'm running, there's reaching out to other entrepreneurs like yourself, going to conferences, networking. It's all part of the same hustle. I wouldn't just put it down to just one or two things that you need to master or dominate.
No, and that's the thing, and that's what I want to shout out to people is the fact that now with this coronavirus, there's a lot of people that are looking to the digital platform, to starting their own websites, to starting their own companies, etc., etc. And they have no idea where to start. And you said it completely. You can't just launch a website and expect people to come. You have to be active on all platforms and even networking, etc., etc.
Exactly. I think the biggest thing for me is, when I get a potential client that calls me up and they only want one of those services, 90% of the time I'll walk away. Like I will literally talk myself out of a job. If they're not interested in doing really what it takes to really make it happen, then that's just not an interesting proposition for me, and I will walk away from those types of projects.
But do you not try and convince them?
Oh yeah, I try to convince them, but as soon as I realize I feel I'm a pretty good salesman. I feel that when someone comes to me and they're motivated, I can close 8 out of 10 times. Mm-hmm. If I have to, think about it this way. Do I really need to convince you how powerful being on the top of Google Maps is if you're a dog groomer? Okay, let's just take dog grooming first for a second. I go to Google Maps and, I have a dog. So I type in dog grooming. I don't care who the top dog groomer in the country is, whether, if they're in Los Angeles, right? That's of no use to me whatsoever. I'm in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. I want a dog groomer that's within a 2-mile radius, right? So Google Maps does a very good job of doing that for me. It's based on the intent of what I have at that exact moment.
Yeah.
So, it's a very clean example. You type it in. If there are 10 dog groomers and only 5 appear, the other 5 really don't exist to me, because I'm going to go to number 1, to number 2, to number 3, to number 4, to number 5. Whoever's got the best price, those are the ones I'm going to go with. I'm not even going to call number 7. No. Right. So, and everyone knows this, right? Everyone has an advanced smartphone in their hands right now. So it's not like I'm educating them on something new. But if they still don't see the light after that simple of an explanation, then, call me when you do, please.
Yeah, no.
I'll be happy to help.
I'm just curious. You look like you've got a good setup there, obviously for your podcasting. When did you start getting into podcasting, and why?
So interestingly enough, this is my second podcast. I started one about 7 years ago with a partner, but due to scheduling and personal reasons, we only got up to 5 episodes and then dropped it.
Okay.
And then what happened was, I would say about 2 years ago, I had a just a revelation that I was telling everyone else to do their own personal branding and to make their own things happen, and it was everyone but me. So
Yeah.
that's when I started, putting together what my, what I wanted to do. So I dug this microphone out of the box and set up a little studio again, and this is where we're at.
And this little studio, is that your bedroom or is that your daughter's bedroom?
This is my bedroom, but yeah, we have Jeffy Bear in the back.
Yeah, I know. I was
So,
just curious about the teddy bear. That's
yeah. So my wife likes the teddy bear, and I like the teddy bear too. So it's all good.
Okay.
I couldn't get the Baby Yoda teddy bear. They sold out right away. So
what is that teddy bear?
it's from there's a big company called Build-A-Bear,
Yes.
and this is this is the teddy bear that I bought her when we first met.
Very nice. With podcasting, if you were giving advice to people about doing their own podcast, what would that be? And why do you see the benefit of doing a podcast?
So as cliche as it sounds, is just start, right? You are going to hate the sound of your own voice. That's just a given. There is something to be said about the tech that you're going to bring into it. I mean, this is not a cheap mic, and to get a boom arm, you can pay $100 for a boom arm. You can pay $20 for a boom arm. It's like, but what you really need to think about is how are you going to talk to people, right? Like, what are you going to say? I mean, just for me to come up, my concept, for example, was that I didn't want to do a hour-long, like interview fest. I'll give them, but for the most part, the podcast that I wanted to do, it's called the One Big Tip, right? So I wanted it to be one specific thing that we're going to talk about, 10 to 15 minutes max. Something bite-sized, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're driving to the supermarket, depending on where you are, that amount of time. And really what it comes down to, I mean, even when I look at these podcast directories, there are so many of them out there on these very, very direct topics.
Yeah.
The net benefit for me is the ability to network, right? I mean, you're on the other side of the planet, and I don't know how you and I would have met otherwise.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for either of us putting ourselves out there, looking for guests or just looking for people to talk to, COVID or not, entrepreneurship is lonely, right? Because a lot of the issues that we deal with on a daily basis as entrepreneurs, I mean, some of these things we can't even talk to our spouses about. I mean, I'm sure they love us very dearly and they're supportive and everything, but talk to them about why this one client canceled today. You may not get the response that you were looking for.
No, I have a battle sometimes about even with podcasting. My wife doesn't understand why I do podcasting.
Yeah. What happens is that, first of all, you need to show up. That's really the first thing. And if you're going to sit there and stress the numbers or stress the return on investment versus hours consumed, obviously, your mileage may vary. Joe Rogan just signed a 9-figure deal with Spotify to put his podcasts online. Am I going to do it? Yeah. Maybe a year from now, but until then, I'm not even looking at the numbers, right? No. I just want to, it's a question of I have to get out there and talk with as many people as possible. If you follow the ClickFunnels community, the leader that is Russell Brunson, he talks about creating your Dream 100, and your Dream 100 are the 100 people that you follow, respect, or want to talk to or want to associate with. Those are the types of people that you should be targeting, that you should be trying to talk to. And one thing that I've noticed about podcasting is that people normally do want to talk to you. They do want to hear their own voice on the radio. They do want to see, their name go out there. And if I'm providing a way to do that, it's going to inspire somebody, Somebody's going to listen to this. It's going to, some light bulb is going to go off in someone's head. And it just would not have happened if we did not put ourselves out there and just did it.
No, absolutely. Is there who has inspired you? Who do you look up to?
I choose my superheroes carefully. I um I I try not to get around, like while I have tremendous respect for the likes of Gary Vaynerchuk and people like that who really do put themselves out there. Sometimes they can come off as a little bit too preachy, a little bit too life coachy for me.
Yeah.
So like who do I respect? I went to the ClickFunnels conference not last year but the year before, and what was first of all, I got to tell you, I have a violent allergic reaction to people that just display wealth. The ones that say, "Look at my Rolex," look at my house in Malibu, look at my G6 airplane
Yeah.
that I'm flying because I'm selling content, and you can do it too. Those people just piss me off to no end, right?
Yeah.
So when I went to this conference, I was really surprised that not one person showed off their ring, their watch, their house, their wife, whatever. They just delivered great content. And I know I was in a room full of millionaires and a lot of people that have made it in the
Yeah.
digital marketing space, in the info, in this info marketing space. So I don't necessarily look to them as like, one or two people that I follow, but I do try to pick up a little tidbit from this person, a little tidbit from that person, and put them all together and cook them up into my own special sauce.
Mm.
And, that's what I'm ultimately going to be producing.
Nice. Now, with this journey, are you where you want to be, or is there still stuff to
There is
work
still so much more ground to cover. So much more ground to cover. But you know what it is that, it's also about finding balance. It's also about finding it definitely is a lifestyle design. I have been fortunate that I'm able to work from home,
Yeah.
that I didn't lose too many clients off, because of this COVID-19 thing. The ones that stuck around, you just make sure that you're over delivering value, so that you're not, so that they don't have a reason to leave you. I mean, the doctors that I work with, they, women are going to still have babies, right? People still need to visit the dentist, all of that stuff. That life still goes on. Not everything is shut down, and eventually it will open up. Obviously, everyone's got to make changes, and I'm rolling with the punches as much as anybody. But this whole entrepreneurial journey has given me the freedom to travel, to live life on my own terms, to travel with my kids. My kids even understand that when I do take them traveling, like I took them to Hong Kong and Japan 2 years ago. We were gone for 2 weeks. They understood that, every once in a while I'm going to have to crack open my laptop. And when I do, then they're going to have to sit there and Netflix for a while.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, Netflixing from Hong Kong is also a great experience, right?
Yeah.
So if that's what it took for, that I had to spend a couple hours in order to make sure that my clients were taken care of, so that I could be working out of a Starbucks in Osaka or in Tokyo, or from a WeWork, wherever it was, that for me was worth the price of admission, hands down.
Very good. How do you keep on top of with the technology and with digital marketing? Do you have your fingers in various sources of information, or how do you keep on top of it all?
It's interesting. You do need to choose your battles. You can't just you can't stay on top of everything. I would say that my news feeds, like like between Mashable and Ars Technica and things like that, you stay on top of what's going on, but it's not so much like the news channels that you need to stay on top of. It's the techniques that, like these superheroes that we talked about, like the Gary Vaynerchuks and Russell Brunsons, like how are they changing in light of this? So let's just take the Gary Vaynerchuk model. He used to have a TV crew just follow him around everywhere, right? So he was just creating hours and hours of content on the daily, right? Well, and he's stuck at home just like the rest of us. So how did he pivot? So he got some graphic designer to make cartoons of him, and make memes, and he was doing these, these little individual broadcasts from his phone. Even those have slowed down. Like all of a sudden, it's not as interesting for him to make those kinds of to make that really hard hitting, I'm the Oracle type of content. So he
Yeah.
pivoted, and that works for him, and that's got to work for everybody else. Not everyone is going to come out the same, but you have to find what works for you.
That's right. And that's my next question is, how do you keep your content engaging so people are always wanting to see what you're posting? And how do you know how much to put out?
I think it's a function of sticking to a schedule, right? Of sticking to something. So if I had to come out with a solo podcast where it's just Jeff ranting every day, that would probably be a pretty boring podcast, right? I mean, while I do have opinions, I just can't imagine myself speaking for a half an hour a day straight, just Jeff's take on the world. So how do I get around that? I invite other people to banter with, right? The same way that you and I are doing today. That is so much more interesting, right? I found that, as people are calling me up, asking, whenever someone wants wants some kind of service from me, they're usually going to learn something, right? Because I'll either talk them into the sale, or I'll talk myself out of a sale. If it's a project that I'm not interested in, I'll tell them why it's not interesting and why.
Yeah.
Right. So, with a podcast, I'm able to do that on a much larger scale, because it is a lot more interesting to talk with a bunch of different people. Now, granted, you get, like every once in a while, someone who is just boring as molasses, and okay, fine, just roll with the punches. Not everyone can be super engaging and super funny and, just everything great. But for the most part, how else are you going to meet people? Right. I mean, think about it. Put COVID aside, right? I mean, like Miami, the Miami Fort Lauderdale area is not necessarily a tech heavy area to be in. There are a couple of startups here, but it's no Silicon Valley. It's no Austin, Texas. It's no New York City.
No.
Right. So there's only so much networking I can do here locally. And then if I want to get out and start networking in other places, well, where am I going to meet them? Am I going to meet them in coffee shops? Am I going to meet them in conferences? Conferences are expensive. Now we have all of we have all of these tools literally in the palm of our hands. We could just pick up the phone and we can video somebody. This is stuff that, 20 years ago was the Jetsons model, right? Now we're just doing it. Right. Yeah. It's just like our kids don't even think, they don't even have a concept of how life was any different. Right. No. So what happens is that it just makes things a lot more interesting. When I started my podcast, I'll tell you this. At first I was stressed. I wanted it to be a weekly podcast because I knew I needed to be consistent. And I was stressing, how am I going to get 4 people a month to talk to me about something? And that was the number that just stuck in my head. How am I going to get 4 people a month? And my first month, I barely squeezed by with that number. But then 4 turned to 10, 10 turned to 20, 20 turned to 40, 40 turned to 60. And then I was like, oh my God, there are only 52 weeks in a year.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I got to go to twice a week. And even now, I have over 90 scheduled interviews. And I'm going to have content after I'm done grinding through all of this. I'm going to have content through the end of the year, which will free me up to work on whatever that next big step is, whether it is, creating a course or creating a second podcast, or maybe a live stream, what we're doing here, or some kind of mastermind group, whatever it is, it's going to be predicated on all of the tips and the value that I'm already bringing. And it's not really me bringing the value. I'm just the venue. Right. Absolutely. I'm inviting people who are going to put it out there, and they're going to say what makes them great.
Yeah.
And that what I think is the most interesting part. I never would have met you or any of these other people unless there was something else going on.
No, I'm with you. It's one, the technology is amazing, and our kids are so lucky that they've been brought into this world with that kind of technology. How they can literally reach out to anyone around the world. We're so connected now. It is amazing. Um, the question that I wanted to throw at you is: okay, you've got all these guests. Do you how do you do it? Do you record them all in a batch and then schedule them throughout the year, or do you?
Right. So what happened was I got this crush of invites. I got this crush of people that wanted to be guests. And now I'm just queuing them up in order. And I'm telling each and every one of them before we start talking, listen, we're recording this now. What is it, June 2nd, but the episode's not going to drop until November. Are you okay with that? Now, 90% of the people that I'm speaking with, the one big tip that we're talking about, it's evergreen, right? It's not something that we need to talk about today. Now, some of these people want to, maybe have a course coming up or maybe just launched a book or whatever. So, I mean, I offer them, for a fee to jump to the head of the line. I can always, reschedule things, a day or so out. I can do bonus episodes. There are lots of ways to do it.
Okay, yeah.
But for the most part, I just set up a system, where you go to a certain page on my website, you fill out the form that drops it into my calendar, which sets up my, my task view on my project management tool, which then prompts me, like what, gives me the calendar of what I need to do today, tomorrow, next week. And then I just go ahead and record.
Nice. What would be a tip if you met yourself 20 years back? What would you advise a younger self of you?
Assuming we had the same technology as today, is that you really do have this in the palm of your hand. And I don't want to be all life coachy about it. I don't want to be like, oh, just manifest yourself and it's gonna, it's gonna appear, right? But the fact of the matter is, it is about showing up, right? It is about, just showing up and saying, yes, this is what I do. And there is so much power in that, just sitting up straight, shoulders back, chin up, and just declaring, I am here to do X, Y, and Z. And it really doesn't matter. At least it didn't matter for me how good I was at it. Like, so I'm developing websites. Am I a graphic designer? I can't draw a stick figure to save my life.
Hmm.
I'm going to go to Elance or Upwork or whatever those other services are I'll find somebody to do it, right? I'll find somebody to do the heavy lifting. Am I a great programmer? No, what takes me 4 hours to do, somebody else can do in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Hire it out.
absolutely.
Right there, everything is, and this is not my quote, everything is figure outable, right? You can figure out how to do it. So if you're astute enough to just realize that every single problem is not a problem, it's just a challenge or an opportunity to deliver, go for it,
Very good.
because it is.
No, you're right. There is no excuse these days because everything's online. You can reach out to anyone. You can find anyone in their expertise. So if you're given a challenge or a job to do that you're not experienced in, you'll find someone to do it. And then you're just the middleman or the manager overseeing it all.
There is so much power in being the broker.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously you have to make sure that you price it right. You have to make sure that you find the right talent at the right price. I mean, yeah, that's the work.
Yeah.
Right. That's that's why someone paid you, because they paid you to do the work that they didn't want to do.
No.
So that's why you're put here, in order to do that. And I love serving that purpose.
Have you ever had your fingers burnt where you've tried someone new?
A few times.
Yeah.
A few times. Yeah. So a couple things, I've even had fingers or hands burned with clients. Firing a client is sometimes the most gratifying and most, the best thing you can do for your business.
Yeah.
Because, if you have a client that's sucking up all of your energy, you won't have enough energy left in order to satisfy the clients that do love you. So you need to be very cognizant of that.
I want to stop you, Jeff. When you do have potential clients, is it a virtual meeting or do you see them face to face? How do you do it? Is it a bit of both?
99% of the time it's virtual, because most of my clients are not here locally.
Yeah. And do you go on your gut feeling sometimes when you meet someone and discuss?
Yes, for the most part, I find that I'm a pretty good judge of character.
Yeah.
I try to look for, like the one. So I'll give you an example. So the ones that want to be, let's just say, they're in the life insurance industry, right? Life insurance is ultra competitive,
Hmm.
for salespeople, right? And if they like right away declare, I want to be number one on the search engines, sorry, buddy, that ship sailed in 2006. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it for you, and you don't have enough money in order to compete with with the big companies that are already dominating that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times those types of personalities are rather easy to flush out, at least in my opinion. But
Hmm.
yeah, you do need to be cognizant. You do need to be, reading between the lines. How much work is this actually going to be for me in order to deliver what I'm actually saying that I'm going to deliver?
Yeah.
It's a big part of the job.
Absolutely. And then on the other side, when you're working with freelancers, do you have a certain process to go through to where they go through several hoops before you actually work with them? Do you give them a test to try?
Of course.
How do you find them?
Of course, I think that first and foremost, you need to test them out. You don't drop a contractor that you just found on Upwork onto one of your larger, more visible projects,
Yeah.
right? You just don't do that. You vet them with smaller projects, see how they deliver, see how they understand the requirements, things like that. It's a process. What I found though is there are a few people out there that are genuinely good, and those people I hang on to like nobody's business. So for example, I have a Indian programmer who is actually a programming team, and I'd say I went through a time for about 8 months that I didn't have any web programming projects for them at all. I just had marketing projects, so I didn't have anything really going on. I didn't want to lose them, right? I didn't want them to, I had nothing going on. So I told them, look, I'm going to put you on a retainer, a minimum hours. It was beneficial for me because I could call on them whenever I needed to. And it was beneficial for them because it was money that they could count on, each and every month. And then it's just, that arrangement has been working well for years now. And it's great because I know the quality. I know what I can throw at them. I know what I can't throw at them. I know their limitations. And once I find good people, try to get creative to hang on to them as best as possible.
Very good. Wi- What I find sometimes with Indian companies is the communication problem. Has there ever been any problems with communications? Do they reply quickly? And did you find them straight away, or did you go through a few before you found the right?
No, you definitely go through a few.
Yeah.
And communication, yeah, it's a thing. But then again, since I had a programming background and a pre-sales engineering background, for me, creating specifications for what I actually want and being able to clearly define that is very second nature for me.
Right.
I
Okay.
make screenshots. I make 10 to 50 screenshots a day of
Yeah.
everything that I want done. So I'll put the squares, a big arrow saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm really good at that, right?
Yeah.
What I find when that the Indians get a bad rap for is, oh no, I didn't get what I wanted, or they didn't deliver. And when you peel back the onion on that, on the concerns that a lot of people have, I can usually trace it back to it's a problem at the origin. They didn't know how to specify what they want. If
No.
you're just going to tell somebody, and this is not particular to India, Philippines, or anywhere else. If you tell somebody, hey, I want, or in your case, I want a 1-minute video that promotes my product, right? And when you stop there, but I want it to be viral, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what do? You smile and say no, thank you, right?
Yeah.
You walk out of there. But if they do have a vision, if they do have a branding language, a design language, this is how we want to do it, and this is this is the feeling that we want to convey, and these are the types of people that we want to do. That we want to do it. Yeah, that's a specification. And usually, if you can specify it, if you can draw it out correctly, then yeah, you will get a quality product.
Mm.
I think a good, 50 to 80% of the time, you will get a quality product, but you got to specify it. And if you don't, I'm sorry, buddy. The problem's you. It's not the Indian guy.
No, you're right. Yeah, very true. Okay, we're nearly coming to the end of the show. I just want to get your opinion on, with this pandemic, how do you see the future of digital business moving forward? Is it going to expand, and is this all we're going to do now? Is everything
I
online?
think we are gonna. I think we are gonna revert back to a lot of normalcy. I don't think that our economies can sustain, everyone wearing masks all the time, or having shopping malls that are open 4 hours a day, or supermarkets that are only open until 8 o'clock at night. At least that's what it is here. We are going to have to go back to the business of being in business.
Yeah.
I think that the companies that were well positioned to handle these changes in how we live. So like Amazon delivering stuff to our house, having the Uber Eats, delivering food to our house, things like that. Those will probably get stronger, but there's also been a backlash, right? Like Uber Eats, all of a sudden, people are waking up to the fact that Uber Eats is charging these local businesses, up to 30% of the bill. They're making less money than if you would have actually walked out and got the food yourself.
Yeah.
And I think anyone that's conscious and has a heart will be like, well, no, something, I do miss going out to a real restaurant.
Yeah.
I do miss going out. I'll tell you, I still don't see myself buying clothes online. That's just my thing. I need to try it on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, we went to a shopping mall on Sunday, and even though it was devastating to look at, because it's a shopping mall that I knew was was always very busy on a Sunday, and now it's just not, and it was just quite sad, but I needed clothes. So I went out and did it. So I think what's going to happen is we are going to return to some kind of normal. We are going to be fighting with remnants of these changes for a good long while, at least another year. But I am itching to get back to traveling and exploring the world and exploring new foods and meeting new people and all that neat stuff. I can't wait for that to come back and be the new normal.
No, absolutely.
Or the old normal at that point.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. How can people find you?
The best way is my name. My website is jeffmendelson.com. You see it right there on the screen.
Yeah.
My email address is jeff@jeffmendelson.com. I love paying it forward. I love talking about this stuff. Please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to chat.
Superb. Thank you, Jeff. You've been a star. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch up with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.